Cool. All right, I'll kick it off. Welcome, everyone. This is Deep Learning Adventures, a fun and engaging community where we talk about data science, machine learning, and deep learning in general. We took a kind of long break last year. I was looking back at our YouTube channel. We started this machine learning specialty certification path last January, I think, 2022. Life got in the way, for better or worse, but we're back. I have some exciting content to share. I'm joined by my great friends and colleagues here, David and Robert, and we are happy for you to join us online here or over YouTube, wherever you are. We send you our best regards. David and Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert Craig, government consulting and co-founder of this event with George and David. Looking forward to bringing you a little bit more machine learning and deep learning events this year. I'll let David introduce himself then as well, and then we'll go over a few different resources that we have culled over the last couple of years, just places we work together, our meetup page, stuff like that. But then we'll jump into the content without too much ado.
Hi, I'm David Patton. I'm a data scientist. Currently, I work in the healthcare industry, and we've been working hard at this different aspects of deep learning as well as machine learning for, I guess, almost a couple of years now. And look forward to talking about this specialization from AWS. George, do you want to share the links to our group where people can find out about us?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll share them in the chat here, the meetup page, as well as our YouTube page, and I'll share my screen so we can have something to look at. And yeah, as for my background, machine learning, deep learning, I'm a director of data science right now at National Association of Realtors, where we apply data science in general to serve over 1.5 million members in our association. And I'm admitting a few people if you see me looking around as they trickle in. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. If you see people coming in, please admit them. Share, and I'm going to do see my browser.
Yes.
Awesome.
So as George mentioned earlier, we are on our 8th adventure, where each adventure is a series of related topics. This adventure is the Amazon Web Services Certified Machine Learning Specialty. Amazon Web Services has a number of certification exams. They range from the Cloud Practitioner, which is the more general introductory certification. There are a number of more advanced certifications along a general track, like solutions architect, developer. And then there are some that they call specialties, which include machine learning, data analytics, and several others. For the three of us and our audience, we know that the machine learning and data analytics portions are the most interesting to us. So we are going through this machine learning specialty session here for this adventure. David and George have already successfully gone through the study course for this and passed the exam. So congratulations to them. And I'm still working through the study, but hoping to get there too soon. So let's see, we have a few resources in addition to this meetup page. We have YouTube channel here with numerous past events, not just from this machine learning specialty adventure, but from our adventures over the last almost 3 years now. This meetup group was started right at the beginning of the pandemic. We went through some courses on TensorFlow. We went through some courses on Kaggle. We had the opportunity to speak to some really exciting guest speakers, such as Lawrence Moroney, I see there, and a couple of others. And this current adventure is Amazon Web Services. We did go through the Cloud Practitioner group, I guess it was about a year ago now, and looking for the machine learning specialty one this time.
Yeah. And just saying that we have a dedicated playlist on YouTube for anything on AWS. Awesome. Cool. Okay, we shared some links online. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. And without further ado, I think we're ready to just jump right in. So
Can I share mine and go through it, George? Do you mind?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. If I can find it, which I think I can. Yep, here we go.
On our meetup page.
All right. Is that, do you see the whole page here? I
Yes.
assume so. Okay. So as Robert mentioned, this is about the AWS certified machine learning specialty. That's one of their certifications, the specialty. And if you're familiar with their certifications, they have a whole suite of certifications. I think it's actually expanded even in the last few months. But they have kind of on the left a progression starting with foundational, associate level, and professional level. And then they also have some independent courses that aren't dependent on any others that are specialties. We thought it was useful to take the Cloud Practitioner one last year. So we finished that, all three of us. And I think it did benefit us when we came to this machine learning one. So what is the machine learning specialty about? It's intended for people that already have some knowledge of AWS. They recommend that you have 6 months of exposure to an AWS Cloud tools and architecture, a basic understanding of how you can run your IT services on the AWS Cloud, and then core AWS services, such as how they do their billing, how they price things. They have a big kind of security concept that goes into it, and how it affects the way you do business. I think that the Cloud Practitioner exam really prepared us well for that, and that you wouldn't necessarily have to have any hands-on. You would not necessarily have to have any hands-on experience with AWS to actually take this exam, and if you studied a lot, understood machine learning. The exam itself cost about $300. Look for, every once in a while they run specials and discounts, so you can pay a bit less than this. It's 3 hours in length, 65 questions. However, keep in mind that 15 of those questions are not going to be scored. They run a kind of like an A/B test where they're checking to see if new questions are going to work for examinees, but they don't tell you which one, so you have to treat them all as legitimate questions. You can take the you can take the exam in person at specialized testing centers, or you can take a proctored exam online with an interesting experience that we all shared when we took the cloud specialization. We did it online. George, I did the online exam this time, and I did the testing center. So we'll share some of those differences. We used a variety of different resources to study for this, and I'm going to go through the ones that I used myself. I took a very how can you say, inexpensive route. I didn't pay for anything. I used all the free resources. They do have classes that you can pay for if you need more specialized instruction, or you feel better with a professional instructor going through things in person. But the first thing that I've listed here is the exam guide. And I want to show that. We looked at the exam guide extensively. So let me show that real quick. Here. And get this thing out of the way. Sorry. Nice prawns. So this is a course from AWS's training and certification group. It's in their what they call their skill builder section of their learning plans. And they have a machine learning plan. This is a series of videos and presentations that you can go through. It actually is about 32 hours of material. And it's very useful, I think, in preparing for the exam in the sense that it shows you videos around concepts around deep learning and machine learning, as well as specific AWS services that you may be tested on. And throughout this, it has little quizzes and exams that help you go through this and learn. And you can do this at your own pace. It took me quite a while to go through all of them, but I learned a lot, and some of them I repeated a few things to go through. The next and all these are listed on our presentation and on the meetup site, so you should be able to find them. Next, I wanted to show the exam guide. We talked about this in prior meetings, but there's different areas that it covers. It has 4 domains, and the exam is generally built up in these percentages. The number of questions you get is based on these domains. It covers data engineering, like pipelines and processing of data, exploratory data analysis. So how can you, look at your data and determine what the distributions are and other things around your data. It has a section on modeling where you're really learning about different types of models, both deep learning as well as more standard machine learning models. And then the 4th domain is very specific to AWS. It has to do with implementation and operations type of work. And they detail each of these data engineering, exploratory data analysis, modeling, and finally the implementation sections. The one reason I wanted to show this is because throughout this guide, they list a series of AWS services that you could see tests about. So in particular, they list a lot of them here under this services and features. And all of these are different AWS services that can be combined or used on their own. And there's many of the test questions that have to do with the, what would you use these for? What are their limitations? How do they connect to other services? And so I found it very useful to understand each one of these services and go to the primary AWS page for that service and read about it. They have nice descriptions usually on the first page, and that gives you a good understanding of that. Along with that, I have a link in the references to this page in AWS for their built-in algorithms. These are their pre-trained models or their different models that they offer inside of SageMaker. And there are particular questions about the different types of models they have, such as nearest neighbors, k-nearest neighbors, linear learner, XGBoost. You may see questions on all of these. So you need to be familiar with what they have available and what you could use those models for. What are the appropriate things for doing time series forecasting, for example. So that's a great page to read through and understand. Obviously, you can click through and learn more about each model if you need to. The next service that I used, or next page I used, was this page on AWS for common data formats for training. Especially around certain models, they only take some formats for different types of algorithms. So for instance, an example, if you're doing tabular tabular data, you're going to use XGBoost. You can use text CSV format, or you can use the live SVM format. And they have descriptions of those down below, what those are. For object detection or semantic segmentation, there's a type of specific type of image they want the format of those to be in. So you may see some questions around those types of formats that they're allowed inside of AWS machine learning. And I think for me, that was the only other one I didn't have up and selected was Wiz Labs, which is a resource that you do pay for. And Wiz Labs gives you some practice exams, as well as you can get videos that go over the formats, the test, and it's very specifically geared to this test, this particular certification. So I found those very useful in the sense that not only do they have the questions and the answers, they have explanations for each answer, what is wrong with an answer or what is right with the answer. And then they have a link to usually an AWS site or a paper or something that goes through and explains the concept that question is covering. So I found that a very useful study guide as well. And I didn't get the videos. I personally just bought the practice tests and went through those. So that was very helpful for me. George, you want to talk about the resources that you used?
Yeah, before we do that, there's some questions in the chat. So Will is asking,
Sure.
Is that exam guide a good representative resource in terms of questions being asked in the exam, or did you have to go back and utilize your knowledge from Cloud Practitioner or somewhere else? To me, I don't know if you want to give your answer, but the answer I gave was Cloud Practitioner definitely helps in what I call the environment around SageMaker. So SageMaker is the main service that Amazon Web Services offers for machine learning. It's their core pilot. It's almost it's more than a platform. It has so many features and services around itself. So anything we want to do with where the data lives, how the data travels, how the data is stored, security, billing, cost effectiveness, roles, and all that, you are exposed to that through Cloud Practitioner. So for us as a team, it was very useful for us to go through that experience through Cloud Practitioner and then focus extensively on SageMaker, but there's a whole orbit of planets around it. And those are storage, security, networking, business needs and all that. And the other thing is in system design, that exam covers, pillars, Lego blocks. But in the exam, I feel we were asked multiple times, how would you design a system? How would you design a system? Which means, how would you put the service together in chain to accomplish a business need or to achieve a goal?
I agree. And I think one of the most important things I learned a lot from, especially from Wiz Labs, was in the practice exams, was you need to think about what technically will get the work done, but AWS often has multiple services that you could do the particular task with. And sometimes they're asking you to do things very carefully. You have to study the question they're asking very carefully. They may be asking you the most economical way to do it, or they may be asking you what's the fastest way to do it in terms of development, or maybe the fastest in terms of performance. So you need to think about the different services and which one would fit that particular criteria. But my general answer would be the exam guide is very thorough and intense what it tells you need to know. I didn't have any surprises that I saw that weren't already mentioned in the exam guide, but the practice exams that they have, there's one from AWS. I think George has it on the resources. And then I went ahead and bought some more practice exams from Wiz Labs and found them to be useful as well.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, David. Yeah. So I'll try my best to go through all these resources, but again, the PowerPoint or the Google Slides is available here. I've opened all the links in advance, so it'll be much easier for me to go through. And I'll go with the specialty exam that David covered. This is the official one website from AWS, the exam guide here. There's some sample questions here, more about the logistics of it. The guide that we mentioned, very useful. In terms of this so the passing score is 750 out of 1,000, and 65 questions. 15 of them are A/B samples, as David mentioned. I got a 1 on a service.
One thing to know here is that score 750 out of 1,000, there's no way that you can estimate your score from thinking that you can guess how many questions you're getting right out of how many wrong. Apparently, there's a very complicated weighting system based on the difficulty of the questions. So this is really pretty opaque, I think. And I don't think they communicate anything about the score afterwards, right? Like you don't get the number you just get a number, but you don't get any feedback about what types of questions you were getting right and wrong. Is that right?
That's right. There's no feedback in that sense. You just get your score.
You get your score and you get like a pass or satisfactory or pass in each domain.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, because there are single choice questions, but there's also multiple choice questions, and I don't know what happens in that scenario when you get, it's a 1.
I don't know. Just looking at that scaled score of 100 to 1,000, I was tempted to think, it must be a linear scale where if you get 0 right, you get 100, and if you get all right, you get 1,000, and linearly scaled in between. But that's totally not the case. The questions are weighted in a very complicated way.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was mentioning is I got asked a question on a service I hadn't heard before, and to me that felt like I was part of that A/B test. I just randomly selected because I never heard before, but then I Googled it and it was a newer service. Okay. The sample, there's an exam readiness. We highly encourage you to check it out. Free resource from Skill Builder. Skill Builder is AWS's online training and certification platform. The machine learning, the one that you mentioned, David, I got lost here. There's 38 hours. It took me like a good, I don't even remember. There's one that's like the 8-hour duration one's very, very long. If you need like a refresher on math, especially this one, anything from calculus, basic linear algebra, statistics, like it was all in one. It might be a little bit outdated, I could tell, like from a UI UX perspective, not from a content perspective. Like I felt that. But it was a good one. This was a good sample exam if you really want to just out of the box give it a go based on your experience. If you want to see where you are, just take this sample exam, and there's answers in the end, just to get an idea. And this is what prompted us, right? When we started this journey, we took this with just the cloud practitioner knowledge, and we thought, okay, we need a little bit of study. This is my list here under Skill Builder. Yeah, so regression, building blocks, terminology, some capstone projects, security elements. The plan is one of them, and so forth. The other one is AWS has this training certification events. I'm just mentioning this. I don't think I use anything from here, but if you're looking for something literally, this month, or that's happening in a couple of days, they have really good resources here. One thing that I wanted to mention was this ramp up guide. We use this for the Cloud Practitioner adventure. They have one for each kind of solution. And the one that we used was for this one, machine learning. I kind of use this one as a guiding point, because nowhere in the exam guide was like a good structure approach. And we're really big fans of structured learning here, right? We don't want to just Google what is next. I really wanted a curriculum. So this ramp up guide for me gave me that solution. And it started with, could be anything from digital training or a website. Most of them are in Skill Builder. If you really want to go far, there's classroom training. We didn't take them, they're too expensive. It didn't fit our needs. But anything with digital training, I think we pretty much went through it. And you'll see here some more resources. There's also Coursera, Udemy, and edX training. I don't think I took any of them. Yeah.
There's a huge variety of time commitments within this ramp up learning guide or machine learning guide, right? From 1 hour to 3 months or whatever I see on the screen just here. How much time would you say that you, George and David, spent on this portion of your study overall?
On the ramp up guide?
Yeah, on just the stuff that was linked to from here.
Yeah. So the ones, I can kick it off. The ones from classroom training, the ones that were manageable, I would say a couple of months. The machine learning plan was the longest one. That took me like a good maybe month or so.
Yeah, I just did the machine learning plan, which is 36 hours or something like that. But obviously I couldn't dedicate 36 hours. So it took me a couple of months, I think.
The machine learning plan,
which it's listed here somewhere. It's one of the ones.
Or components of it are listed here.
Yeah.
Parts of it are here, yeah.
Yeah. Then what else is in the ramp up guide? I came across this machine learning university. It's basically a resource from Amazon Web Services. It might be updated a couple years ago, but I found this really interesting. I like the, looks like I have a new playlist. I went to the computer vision, tabular data, and natural language processing. And, this was a good one. What is the name of this? Yeah, this was like on machine learning, like decision trees, ensemble models, regularization, bias variance, and all that. So yeah, I would say classical machine learning and the more deep learning here. There's also classical machine learning, tabular data, k-nearest neighbors, tree-based, SageMaker, hyperparameter tuning. This is a new one. It says a month ago, so I haven't checked this one. Responsible AI. Okay, good to know. These are all in the Google Slides. So from that university, you are exposed also to the GitHub page for Amazon Web Services. So when you see MLU, that means Machine Learning University. So you can look at code as well. Through this journey, we saw multiple references to this book. I kind of looked at it, from as needed basis based on links, but this is basically an effort from Amazon. And let's say if I click on it, it's a book slash, latex slash, notebook kind of nice notation, but there's also code here as well, which I like in different platforms. It's a nice, basically, resource. If it might be a little bit technical, I'd say, but there's a lot of structure here. It's basically an online book. So if you're looking
to be clear, we don't need any of the code. However, for the purposes of the exam, it's all multiple choice questions, a little bit higher level than coding.
Yeah,
right.
Correct. Yeah, even though in the practice exams from other resources, do you remember any code questions? Or I remember hyperparameter names or variables or things of that nature, but I never saw, where's the bug in this code kind of question.
No, there's definitely hyperparameters that are asked of you, but no.
Mm-hmm. Then through this ramp up guide, I came across this resource, Amazon SageMaker Technical Deep Dive Series. I highly recommend this. This is a newer one, last updated 2022. The graphics are great, the content is great, this presenter is wonderful. But yeah, it starts from the basic models, model building, distributed training, feature engineering, batch transform, ground truth, experiments, autopilot, which is basically the feature that SageMaker has to pick multiple models and pick the best one for you, deployment, endpoint deployment, ML ops, how do you maintain it? To me, this was really, really, really useful. I highly recommend this resource. I came through another training one so for me, there are two arms in this, right? There's a learning part where you get to learn as much as possible. But then there's the exam part, like how do you get good at the logistics of the exam? How do you get used to the psychology of it, right? Because this is a different UI UX. You're interacting with the multiple questions. So I would say you need both. You need to really be comfortable taking this kind of exams, get it out of the way, practice, practice, practice. This one was a good one. I'm just going to sample here some other ones. You can get a feel for it. Not only that, but in the end, you get an answer, and for each question that you picked, you get to know. You're told this is the wrong answer for this reason. This is the right answer for this reason. So, for me, this mechanics of the exams and in combination with the answers was like really useful. Okay. Then on paid resources, I have a slide on this. So we are here, covered this, and now we're here. So I paid, I think $20-25 for this Tutorials Dojo, and another $20-25 for this WizLab. I think I have a slide here, yeah. So I'm just quickly going to go over them. This one was a good one. It's just a practice exam. You're basically buying practice exams. I think I took only one practice exam. I think there's a couple resources here. Let me see if I remember correctly. I have to log in, but for me, I spent a lot of time in the WizLab one, and this is what you recommended from your colleague. I got this. They have 3 practice tests. They have a free test, 3 practice tests, and section 1, which, as you see, I didn't go through. In the amount of time I was preparing for, I only was able to go through this one and one full practice. And how do I say this? I have, in general, good feedback about this resource. The pros are you really get exposed to the mechanics of the exam. The questions are really diverse. Like, you're not going to get the same question again and again. So I can tell they spent a lot of time and energy into this. The cons are, I feel the people who made this are more aware or stronger in other AWS specializations, maybe like networking or maybe like solutions architect. I can tell, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but they're not experts themselves in here, because some of the questions they ask, I had second thoughts, like, and I mentioned some examples, like, for example, they were mentioning, oh, you have a computer vision program and you want to identify cars as they go through customs, and you want to identify cars that have US license plates, but you want to flag cars that have, let's say, Canadian or Mexican license plates, like out of country license plates. Which of the following options, would help you in that course? And they were talking a lot about like learning rate, increase the learning rate or decrease the learning rate. In their mind, they thought that had to do with generalization, which, from my experience, that's just not enough. Like learning rate and generalizations, are not the same. So having said that, for me, I might have mentioned with my colleagues here, but to me, the embedding, if I wanted to embed this knowledge somewhere in the space, was right here, and the exam was close to it, but not exactly the same. So in all my attempts, I was never able to get more than like 50 or 60% of the exam. I took it multiple times, and surprisingly, I was still in the 38 out of 65 right questions. And if you look at the report, what I like about it, some people are joining us. You get the question, you get what you asked, what you clicked on, and then you get an explanation, and you get references, lots of references. So for me, this explanation references part, like, yes, you're worth your money. I can go in detail. There's even diagrams, multiple questions. So for the weird ones that, you have questions, you can submit feedback here, negative or positive. And when you do that, you actually see what other people said about this question. So let's see one that I did wrong. Let's see if someone posted a question in November 2019 about this, So I gave them feedback. I gave them a lot of feedback, because some of the questions they were saying did not make a lot of sense to me. But in 90% of it was like, okay, good, I can trust this. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in this resource. I like the diagrams. I like their explanations. I like the references so much that we plan on doing another session, just going through the multiple references that this resource and other resources, but mainly this resource generated. So I have machine learning bookmark here that started slowly, but then now it's grown up so much that as I was going through this journey, I just bookmarked things that I find interesting. So look out for a session on this. I'll try to manage this because there's so many resources here, but I just wanted to say that this was pivotal in the creation of that bookmark. Cool, a few more tabs. This one I came across this book. I didn't buy it. I didn't see it. I didn't study it, so I cannot recommend it, or I cannot express my opinion on it. It looks like it has a little bit of learning material, and I think in the end, it has an actual exam sample, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so if you're more into books, online or offline, or hard copies, is a good one. There's a lot of learning here, so they spend a lot of time in, learning, explaining topics. Definitely the common formats came multiple times, as you mentioned, David. The pre-trained algorithms, you should know them by heart. I want to say anything about, what is the problem, what is the input, what are the built-in algorithms, try as much as popular, especially for supervised. Yeah, XGBoost shows up all the time. I spend a lot of time on XGBoost, learn a lot about its hyperparameters, how you use it, how you define it, how you call it. Let me find a good page. Oh yeah, hyperparameters. How you call it, what does it mean? What does each hyperparameter do? Like some kind of regularization. Like I think XGBoost was mentioned multiple times, both in practice and in the exam. Another resource is this great book / workshop / meetup / videos, you name it. I think it's like a similar community like ours, organized by Amazon Web Services, by Angie and Chris. Sometimes I join their meetups. They do a good job. They have guest speakers like us. They go through code. So this is a good resource. They have a book again. These are the authors. They have, if you just want to look at the videos, I recommend that. They have a YouTube channel. They have the code as well. I didn't get the chance to go through it myself. I skimmed through the videos, some of them, just to get an idea. But it looked to me like it was an overview of, I think, mainly NLP applications using Amazon Web Services SageMaker. If this is too much and you prefer something more traditional like Coursera course, they have a Coursera course around that book and around those resources. So it's called Practical Data Science on AWS Specialization. O'Reilly has some good resources. I didn't get the chance to go through them. I'm just mentioning them for completeness. They have a certification guide and a practice exam. If you have access to O'Reilly, go for it. And as Robert mentioned, right, there's multiple other ones out there. If you just do a simple Google search on AWS Machine Learning Practice Exam, you're going to find things from Amazon itself, obviously, Udemy, WizLabs, the one that we covered, you name it. Okay, then let's see, where are we? So that was what we covered, and all the resources. Yeah, the book, O'Reilly, good. Let me slideshow this. Then yeah, O'Reilly. This is the one that kind of got close to taking the exam. It's a resource from AWS itself. There are 2 paid resources. And then basically a lot of research. You can find anything on Wikipedia. I think you need to be really good at precision recall. I think for classification tasks, computer matrix, terminology. Data School is known on YouTube. They have really good resources. This is from 2014, but it's still pretty good. And yeah, if you go to their website, the exam website, there's interesting resources here. I find some other ones that I was hoping I'd go through them. I didn't get the time. I'm just mentioning them here for completeness. So this is on the intersection of machine learning and like the business. How do I apply this? So they have a page on machine learning for like public sector, like nonprofits or public sector organizations. They have one on what is called well-architected framework. We saw this in the Cloud Practitioner side. It was simpler, but the basic ones were efficiency, reliability, operational excellence, security, cost optimization. Now, how do you apply that within the machine learning cycle? What is your goal? How do you frame your problem? How do you get your data? How do you do model development, tuning, and all that? How do you deploy it? How do you deploy it? How do you monitor it? And going through this cycle multiple times. I also came across this machine learning blog from AWS. Again, I didn't go through it. I just want to mention this for completeness. And also SageMaker Fridays is a thing. I didn't know that. There are previously recorded sessions there from last year from AWS. They have interesting sessions on anything from like specific topic to like general deep learning or machine learning concepts. They also have now a dedicated website, which I think was much needed because you see, we went on our own, right? We kind of created the curriculum. We relied a lot on that ramp up guide, but we had to put all these resources together. This was not there. I'm just mentioning this again here. I think I would start here if I did it again, just to see what they recommend. Another thing is, as David and Robert mentioned, that every now and then you might see a discount on taking the exam. It's $300. That was a big motivation for me just to wrap things up. So they had a motivation that you get 50% off if you sign up before December 16th. I thought I had to take the exam before December 16th, but no, you just had to sign up and you can take the exam in the next 3 months, I think. So I signed up, I took the exam right before Christmas. I just got half off. Cool, lots of content there. I just wanted to mention this quickly just for you who plan to take it. I'll share my experience with online, and David, feel free to share yours with offline in person, but get used to it. It's a little bit anxious to me, like in the sense that the proctoring process itself is very strict. So they ask you, your desk, they ask you to completely clear it out. You shouldn't have any items, no pencils, no papers, no phone, definitely no phone, no keys, nothing, just maybe a water bottle or a glass of water. That's the only thing that's allowed. There's an app that you have to take a selfie, you have to take a photo of your driver's license, just to verify that it is who you are. Photos of your ID, and make sure you don't have anything on a computer. They ask you, do you have a mirror? They want to see what is in front of you, even though during the check-in process, you take photos of your room around multiple angles. I have an iMac. I have like a kind of like a big mirror monitor. I cannot really turn it left and right, but you have a laptop, they'll ask you to twist it left and right just to make sure there's nobody in the room. There's no recording device. They want to make sure that it's only you, and there's no other app running, only their app, and you cannot use the internet to search anything. That was my online experience.
In person, it's a very similar type of experience when you're concentrating and taking the exam, but you do go physically to a site. I found it very easy to sign up and get availability. So in my case, it was a room with multiple computers. The interface is the same as when I took other tests online with AWS, but not everyone there is taking the same test, not even just AWS tests. They might be taking Microsoft or other types of certification tests. You have to remove everything from your pockets, any smart devices, watches. You needed to have 2 forms of ID, which have your picture. The first one has to have your picture plus your first name, last name. The second one can just have your first name, last name. You can wear a mask, to protect yourself. You just have to take it off once for the verification. They compare your picture to the picture, to the ID. The other thing that's different between this and the Cloud Foundation exam is the results are not given to you immediately. The whole process has to be reviewed by AWS, and they say I believe it says results will be to you within 5 business days. I got mine within 24 hours. I think, George, yours was pretty fast also, right?
Yeah, I think mine took a day or 2.
Yeah.
That last point was not specific to the in-person exam experience. That's just for the ML specialty as compared to the cloud.
That's right, because both George and I had to wait to get our results.
Yeah, we had to wait a couple of days. I had to wait a couple of days. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best process, but I guess I understand them, right? I want to make sure that it is you who are taking the exam, and
Right.
you're responsible for it. Okay, couple more tabs if you don't mind. Wrapping up. So yeah, as you go through this, once you go to training certification profile, you register for the exam. If you do it online, you can pick any date, any time, just pick a slot, and it's really flexible. I like that. And then once you pass it, you get the score. You get a small report based on the different domains, and if it just says satisfactory or not. For us, I guess it was all satisfactory. And then you get these digital badges that you can share online. This is what I shared with my LinkedIn community there. You get something like this, you can download it. And not only that, but you get something called like a public URL that you can share with others on your network. Cool. So yeah, that was a lot. Again, this is the starting point for this exam. Check it out. See if this is of interest to you. Every now and then you might get a discount or something like that. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is once you pass an exam from AWS, they give you a voucher to take any other one half off. So you get a discount code for the next one, whatever you might choose to be. So when we took the practitioner, we got one for the next one. I still haven't used it because I used the discount they were having last December. So I'm thinking of using it somewhere else. Cool. So as we mentioned, yeah, we'll post this recording here. If you want to go through the Cloud Practitioner first, we have 2 sessions there. One, the preparation strategy, and one something similar to this that we're doing now for machine learning. We have one preparation strategy for machine learning we did, last year. We're going to post this. And as I mentioned, the other one that I'm trying to organize with Robert and David is this collection of bookmarks. To me, it's I learned a lot, and you see many of them are not even AWS related. So if you're coming from an approach that I don't even use AWS in my work, will this be useful for me? Going back to the exam code or the exam guide, I would say the first 3 are pretty much applicable to most or any other cloud provider or even local. I mean, sure, you might use different services, for example, like where the data lives and how to bring it in, but especially for the EDA, and the exploratory data analysis, the modeling part, it's common machine learning knowledge that you can utilize anywhere.
So it's interesting there. If you were to go back up to the domains, 1 through 3, I believe, is 80%, right? But I think we all, at least the 2 of us, felt like maybe AWS services made up more than 20%. Would you agree, George? I think we maybe came to that
Which
conclusion.
one?
So if you thought the main four was really the only one that would be AWS services,
Mm,
you know, we felt like it was more than just 20% of the exam. Like it was, but again, a lot of them could have been those 15 questions that don't get scored. So we're not sure.
Well, I think if you look at the prep guides, there's a lot of AWS services under the data engineering umbrella, and then all the SageMaker,
Yes.
very Amazon specific algorithms and SageMaker services, plus
mhm.
the ML as a service like recognition and these other things.
Yeah. Are you asking like how many times did a specific AWS service came in?
Well, no, I was just giving a comparison that given those percentages up there, you might think, oh, you know, 20%, if the last domain is the only one that's really AWS specific,
Mm,
you wouldn't even need to study AWS, right? You could pass if you just got everything right in the first three, because that would be 80% complete. But of course, as Robert pointed out, the algorithm is more complicated than that. It's not like every question's not scored the same and things like that. So
Well, I certainly have heard that of the specialty exams, this is the one that generalized machine learning knowledge will get you much of the way there. And you can study the AWS portion in a few months. And I think that's basically the path for all three of us. Had significant machine learning experience before embarking on this AWS journey.
yeah.
But the reverse is probably a little bit more difficult based on the intel that I have heard. If you are very familiar with AWS services, maybe you're even specializing in security or networking or one of these other exam topics, you cannot expect to pick up the machine learning in several months because so much of it is conceptual fundamentals and just the institutional knowledge of how you might tune a particular type of algorithm, which is just difficult to get from book study.
Right.
Yeah, I would say 1 in 3 questions was AWS service related to me from my experience. Maybe 1 in 2, 1 in 3, like 33%. Yeah, and I agree with your comments, Robert. Yeah, I think if you have machine learning knowledge, bringing that gap, bridging that gap of what AWS services you need is easier than if I just have the AWS, but the machine learning is like much higher jump. So you need both in the end of the day, but I think the machine learning.
There's a question in the chat about how basically how long is this certification good for? And I read it at one point, and I want to say 3 years, but I have to look it up again.
I think it's 3 years or 2 or 3 years.
I believe it's 3 years, and you also, by certifying in a specialty like this, you automatically recertify the cloud practitioner as well, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is that true for the specialties or just for the solutions architect?
That's a good one. I need to look it up. I don't know. I remember that was the case for the associate one. Like if you take any other one, then the cloud practitioner will also be automatically renewed.
And that's true for the different levels as well, right? There's a solutions architect associate and solutions architect developer. And if you take the more difficult exam, you automatically certify for all the stuff underneath it. Again, you automatically renew your certification.
Yeah. Trying to find their umbrella. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so you start with the practitioner, and then if you do any other one, the one underneath it. So if you do associate, the foundation will be renewed. If you do professional, the associate will be renewed. I don't know if you do specialty, and you also have done, let's say, associate. I imagine that also be renewed, but I cannot put my hand on it. I don't know. There was another question in the chat also. I'm interested in this data analytics specialty one. It has a little bit of overlap with the machine learning one. If those of you who are more coming from a data analytics one, if you want to take a look at this, it has a similar structure, but this is just from a data analysis perspective. Cool. Going back here, yeah, presentation is here, more about certification. The recording, I'll post them here. If you want to join us on Slack, we have them here. And I'll post it here. And maybe we can wrap up with what other adventures we see coming up. I'm going to stop sharing here.
So just for clarification, I was looking at my certification result. It is good for 3 years.
3 years, good. Okay. It's a lot of hard work there, you know. It better be worth for many. Cool. So yeah, upcoming sessions. We're gonna do one on those bookmarks that we came across. I'll try and structure them based on the exam. You know, data engineering, exploratory data analysis, modeling, and deployment. And after that, you know, we'd love to hear your feedback. We chat a little bit internally. We have some ideas, but if you have any ideas, comments, feedback, what you'd like to see next, we'd appreciate it. We've done anything from let's take a course, let's do hands-on projects. We really like those. Let's do a Kaggle competition as a group. Let's invite speakers. Hackathon we haven't done, that'd be nice. I remember AWS had a hackathon while we're doing this. Yeah, anything that might be interesting, you know, we try to create new things or new adventures as we go through this journey.
Thanks
Cool.
everybody for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're trying to keep it under 1 hour. Wow, that's a record. Okay, so yeah, we'll post the recording. We'll have a last session on the bookmarks, and then based on feedback we receive from you guys, or we're gonna cover some interesting topics, and it could be anything from simple, from like, you know, machine learning to, we hear a lot about, you know, ChatGPT, about stable diffusion, all that. That's another direction we can go. We can also go back to deep learning AI resources. They're pretty good. They've come up with some really good resources. Or, you know, hands-on projects. We had a really fun time doing the app deployment of custom face recognition as a group here. You know, but there's also the initial plan was we do this for AWS. Then can we do the same for other cloud providers? So if you're interested in like Azure or Google Cloud Platform, maybe we do a similar path of we take a foundational certification and then a machine learning one. I personally use Azure at work, so I'd be interested in exploring Azure more. Some of you might use something else, so let us know. Okay, yeah, once we have a good sense of the next session, we'll post it online. We appreciate you joining us here, and thank you for the great questions, and we'll see you maybe in a couple of weeks. That's what we're aiming for now. And if you're joining us online on YouTube, thanks so much, and thank you for your support. Cool. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks all, and goodbye.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Shu. Okay, let's put some people in. Oh, yes, stop recording. Thank you.